Modern photography's been around a long time, 175 years or so. That doesn't mean we understand what a photograph really is, that it's a kind of oracle, telling us not only who we are, where we've been, but perhaps where we're going as well. Ricardo Vieira, curator at the Lehigh University Art Gallery, says when he came to this university in 1974, which was about 1 year after I graduated, there was only one photograph in the entire Lehigh collection, and that was of Asa Packer, the founder, a portrait, of course. Makes sense. Used to be only the privileged could afford to have their pictures taken. And now, Mr. Vieira has given me the privilege, to which I have no particular right, to take this stage to translate, but mostly be a distorting lens, I'm sure, to what you have every right to interpret for yourself. The 56 photographs that make up the gallery exhibit celebrating Lehigh's 150th over in McGinnis Hall. I did go to Lehigh from 1968 to 73, which gives me some legitimacy as a guide. I studied to be an engineer until I couldn't take it anymore, and found refuge over in the English department, God bless them, where they pried open my mind with great literature. I joined a fraternity of men, made many lasting friendships, while also bludgeoning that same mind into a passive euphoria with innumerable mind-altering substances. Yeah, that's the truth. We didn't have a cow, though, or such nice cameras at our disposal. When I went to Lehigh, it was all male, which was what I wanted, until I quickly realized it wasn't. My parents were in Argentina. I'd spent most of my high school years in Japan, and between the war in Vietnam, the feminist revolution, rock and roll music, the birth of computers, whoa. It was just way too much change for me. Like these days, I guess, but even more so now. I mean, you know, this photograph was taken from pretty much exactly where you're sitting. Do you believe that? This is a photograph of the Zollner Art Center. Yeah, it is, before it was built. Maybe it doesn't make you think of Zollner, or even Taylor Jim, given what it's been through. But Lehigh's been through a lot, hasn't it? We still call it Lehigh, don't we? I wonder just how much change something can take before it's not what it was anymore. Bruce Haynes, who's a devoted alum of this university, says whenever he came to the football games or wrestling matches, we always used to call ourselves the Lehigh Engineers, and how alienated he felt. Alienated, okay, that's my word. When we changed the name of the mascot over to the Lehigh Mountain Hawks. Me, whenever I went to a football game, I always felt disconnected, like an outsider. And over the years, I guess that's kind of become my way. Never entirely happy with anything. Always unwilling to join the crowd. I mean, I can't look at a photograph like this without thinking, well, you tell me. What does your mind go to when you see an image like this? Yeah, it's all right. I'll wait. Anyone? What's that? What's that? Somebody walked. Yeah. Me? I see all the uniformly trimmed mustaches. Look at that, every one of them. The hats, all with bands. The virtually identical three-piece suits. I mean, come on, what's going on here? Some secret conspiracy of fashion conformity? How come? To feel safe, I guess? I mean, there must have been a dress code somewhere. That's crazy. Still, the car's pretty nice, don't you think? But more to the point, if we were to know any of these men personally, everything would change, wouldn't it? The individuals would shine through, and the pride, the joy, the fear that gives vitality to their unique characters. And so come my thoughts, always to the same theme. Who are we, really? Bethlehem, Lehigh. And how might these photographs help guide us through this place of so much change? And I'll tell you, I'll be upfront about it. I'm on a mission here to link us to ourselves again, if it's needed. If possible, our better angels. Sure, God is love and Jesus saves. All are welcome, at least in principle. But everybody knows we live between two worlds. There's the one, the world of all the things, the irons, scales, cups, galvanized pipe, coal buckets, brooms, saws. Rick Cantelme says that's an Atkins saw. Probably ripped tooth for rough cutting. Great saw. All the best were made before World War II. You know Rick Cantelme, right? Good, I see two. Cantelme's Hardware. Down on 4th Street. Been in the family for 3 generations. Anyway. Embedded in every one of these simple things is another world. The values which guided the people that shaped and made them. And still can be read within them. And there too can be found their dreams as well, like a dusty perfume. I don't know these folks, do you? The guy with the beans reminds me of my brother Chris. He's 2 years older than I am. Chris has only got 1 kidney, and it doesn't even belong to him anyway. My little brother Philip had to give him one of his when Chris's finally failed completely. Polycystic kidneys, it's a family disease. My mother died of it. Rick Cantelme says when he visited this market as a kid, the police station was right upstairs. Yeah, kept repeating that again and again, like maybe if you ever find your way back here, you'd better be on your best behavior, seeing as you'll be in such close proximity to the man and all that. There was hay and straw everywhere, and animals bleeding from their confines. And of course, these big people hawking stuff from stands all over the place. Of course, Rick being only 6, pretty much everybody but the goats was big. funny. You know, a market like this these days would be priceless. You know, even beyond the reach of our gold MasterCards. So, how do we let it slip away? Or did we even have a say in the matter? I've got a friend, Doug Royston, puppeteer, mock turtle marionettes. Hangs out at the ice house over on Sand Island where he carves a handsome puppet and makes these little handmade plays for children and their parents. But lately, Doug's been spending most of his time trying to quantify the intangible values, the handmade, the homegrown. Because the economic equation is so often blind to it and often dictates mass production and monoculture. Yeah, that struggle has been going a long time. The people have always had a long and stony road to hoe. The man right upstairs, always ready to carry out the rules and regulations of the moneyed, the privileged. And I think it's fair to say that this university is a child of those men of power and privilege. But the people of South Bethlehem, where Lehigh makes its home, not so much. Maybe more like the quiet small child, always last in line for seconds at the dinner table. But Carl Sandburg said of the people is myth, an abstraction. But what myth would you put in place of the people? And what abstraction would you exchange for this one? But tell me, who and precisely what is the people? At about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, November 10th, 1935, a 32-year-old Missourian named Walker Evans stationed his 8x10 camera halfway up St. Michael's Cemetery and mounting it with his Zeiss Protar lens, took several exposures of the cemetery, workers' homes, the steel, and what could be seen through the gray haze of the distant countryside. Of this photograph, Walker Evans said, "It's transcendent. You can feel it. It's there, and you can't unfeel it." Ever since, photographers have been coming from all around the world to make pilgrimage to St. Michael's Cemetery and stand in the very spot where this perfectly lucid shot was taken. But they can't find the cross, the huge cross that ties together the composition and represents, among other things, the two worlds coming together, the finite and the infinite. It's gone. Ricardo says, "Ricardo, are you here?" That way I can know where to look. Oh, yeah, Ricardo. Ricardo says they always make their way down to the Lehigh Art Gallery and want to know, where's the cross? As if the beauty that's still here can't be found without locating a particular piece of stone masonry. When first I looked at this image, I had to turn my eyes away. It was just too truly sad for me. I thought of Jesus on the mountain and how when he beheld the city, he wept. saying, "If thou hadst known, even thou, at least in this thy day, the things which belong unto thy peace, but now they are hid from thine eyes." Rick Cantelmi says they used to beautifully decorate every one of those row homes at Christmas. C9s, the big colored bulbs. Work at the steel, make your way home to the 4th Street, eventually get yourself laid to rest in St. Michael's Cemetery. Some of the people, they didn't even know their last names. Their families still back in Europe. Hunky Joe. That's a not very polite way of referring to a Hungarian. Polak, whatever. When they died, Rick's grandfather was killed in the steel in 1949. That's what ended up on the gravestone, Hunky Joe. They say whenever there was a derailment down at the railroad, they'd always put the nobodies furthest in underneath when it came time to pick up the car. That way, if it slipped, they were the ones that got killed. Yeah, sometimes taking care of your own can mean a death sentence for somebody else. That was the steel. That was the company. Number 2 machine shop. Wow, this was the biggest building in the world when it was first constructed. Come on, Leonardo da Vinci's got nothing on this. Classic proportions. A cathedral of light cascading through Gothic-like ceiling tracery that reminds me of the Renaissance and Vitruvian Man. True, no Venus of the Rocks, no Virgin of the Rocks here, just the rocks. Or rather, steel debris, I should say. Like corpses on the battlefield of the Industrial Revolution. I'll tell you one thing, though. This took serious money. And men of grit and real imagination. It was noisy, dangerous. At night you could hear the saws cutting up the huge beams of steel. The horrific roar of the furnaces being tapped. The thunderous banging of the rolling mills. Like God Zeus hammering out his angry rods of lightning. Handmade, though. Shoo! Just with fantastically huge tools. This was Bethlehem at its greatest. Brain and brawn combined into Bethlehem steel. The call for trained management to run these mills is what brought into being this university with the mission to provide the materials that would build America. The Empire State Building, the Golden Gate Bridge, the Supreme Court, battleships that helped win World War II, railroad cars and tracks that united this country from east to west. It was dirty. It was greasy. I mean, when I worked down at the combination mill, I had to earn my way through my last year at Lehigh, doing night shift at the steel. You couldn't lean on a handrail without getting yourself so dirty it was irreparable. I mean, you couldn't take a step without landing in grease 3-4 inches deep from the machinery. And if you worked there, you'd be breathing in that steel dust, shortening your life, working side by side with men in their dirty yellow hats, green hats, red. It took balls to do this work. And when things got really tough, the women took over. Yeah, during the war, when the men had to go and fight for our country. But that's over now. Right? That's not who we are anymore. It's gone, isn't it? Well, maybe not. I mean, we're still here, aren't we? We, the people. And we made the steel, right? It didn't make us. And long before that, we were the ones who founded this utopia on the banks of the Lehigh River and had the audacity to call it Bethlehem, with its first industrial park in America, its legacy of tolerance, its tradition of love and support of community, its love of music. That was us, wasn't it? Or has there been just too much change? And I have to say, in all this, personally, I find the desire to be great at something, anything, a serious distraction. Anybody else out there? Can I get a witness? Amen. And once, because I've always wanted to be great at something, anything, I asked my philosophy brother-in-law, John Hare. John was cut his teeth as a philosophy professor at Lehigh back in the 70s. I said, John, what does it take to be great? And he said, doesn't take anything in particular, just a lot of it. Yeah. We'll take Calypso Island here. Well, you can't. It's not really there anymore. The railroad dug up most of it for fill on a nearby track, and now this little huckleberry refuge is gone forever. In the name of progress or expediency, I don't know. It was just a pile of dirt in the middle of the river with weeds and wild trees growing on it. True, people like to picnic there during the summer, but come on. Railroad. Now, that's something to be proud of. Surely there's the smell of great progress in the stink of those coal-burning steam engines. But just what kind of greatness might we be looking for? In the 1800s, to clear 100 acres of wildlands to make way for a railroad, well, there was progress, something to be proud of. But circumstances change their look as the sun passes through the sky from day to night to day again. It can throw you off. What was yesterday's great progress can be today's shameful mistake. Hindsight is 20/20, so let's not get all judgmental. Still, there is such a thing as losing your way. Over time, one can see how the honest need to simply survive so often slips into an inordinate desire for money, status, power, like an inescapable gravity pulling us through one boom to bust cycle after another, scraping, careening, crawling towards God knows what. As Yeats said, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the great second coming is at hand. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born? The chapel frescoes by John Ormai in the apse, the Zion First Hungarian Lutheran Sanctuary on 4th and State Streets. It depicts the resurrection of Christ. The three women who beheld him carried forth his great truth to the world, the people. I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. And his disciples who grieved, denied, despaired. In his early years, Ormai worked side by side with a socialist, very famous artist named Ben Shahn. Ormai wanted to paint churches and religious allegories, whereas Ormai needed only his desire for social justice to inspire his life, his art. God can take care of himself. Yeah. The sacred versus the secular. What a debilitating dichotomy. Little more than a trick of the mind. As if these two worlds could be separated somehow and pitted against one another. That's what men do, not God. The Lord of time, ever-flowing time, will have his way with us, with all these things. We who contemplate them. Like the Lehigh River, it flows just out of sight, underneath the Penny Bridge here, always flowing, never ending. And yet, where is it? And now we're on the subject. Why is there no public shore in South Bethlehem? Yeah, think about it. No place to enjoy the passing of the river. And how is it that anyone could cross this bridge to Lehigh and not know how Bethlehem grew out of a community committed to the divine? Or that Lehigh sprang up to assist men's ambition for power and progress. And that all this was built on the backs of thousands and thousands of immigrants who could do little more than eke out a living long enough to die here. And that all this is what gives Lehigh, gives Bethlehem its genuinely authentic character. Our best chance and foundation for true greatness. Do these things not matter? I need to believe that this river of time that is passing through us, making us old, older, and then into apparent nothingness, is leading somewhere meaningful. And that this tyrant of ambition for power is little more than a circus monkey of whom we'll eventually tire, no longer amused. In other words, friends, there's more at stake in this little conversation here than the nostalgic recollections of past greatness or platitudes of philosophy and poetry. Something of practical utility. Might have come from our forebears in the hardware store, some fundamental knowledge like a jackknife made sharp on the rough edge of revealed experience. But the only tools I see, the only tools I know are those that are already in our ordinary lives and can be found as we go about doing our ordinary chores, paying the obligatory toll at the penny bridge to the ever so portly Tubby Rich who'll let us pass for free if he knows us. He's dead now, of course. The river of time has done its work. Even the bridge is gone, thank heavens. It was of an iron grate design and hell for women in heels. Yeah, I tell you. I'm afraid to even try and speak about this photograph, me being white. Once, when I was in 6th grade, a little black girl, my classmate, out of nowhere, threw me across the cloakroom into the wall. Bang! Knocked the air right out of me. As I slid to the floor, I slowly realized, hey, I think she likes me. Yeah. It was only 40 years later it dawned on me that was how hard she had to hit me to get my attention. My mother was a fighter. My dad, her coach. 25 years on dialysis. I think she held the record for a while, living off a machine, in and out of the hospital so many times, I lost count what round she was in. Failed kidneys, collapsed arteries, shunts being put in and taken out, broken bones and ribs from depleted cartilage and too much coughing, punctured lung once or twice, I can't remember. It wasn't my problem, so I didn't pay too much attention. She was a racist too. I guess I must have learned it from her. I never forgave her for it. Even if she was fighting for her life by sheer force of will, sending her blood 3 times a week through thin plastic tubes to its cleansing rendezvous with acidic bicarbonate dialysate. My father running the machinery, injecting her with heparin to keep the blood from clotting, trying to keep her spirits up. Still, her story's no different from any of us here might tell. Right? All of us with our own personal struggles. Still, one day, she finally decided she was going to throw in the gloves, quit the machine. She didn't tell us because she didn't want us to try and stop her from leaving the ring. I guess she felt if life was for living, it was time to leave this one. My dad said if he'd known the struggle was going to go on so long, he never would have taken it up in the first place. Oh my God, not another graveyard. Stop, please. Ricardo, this is getting a little morbid here. Can't we do something a little more upbeat? I mean, all these photographs are of the past, the dead. Can we get some photographs here of the future, maybe? The good things to come? This is a high-tech university. You could swing it. Can't do that, huh? Right. Not yet. Still, this is the land of this is the land of those who sleep. We want to be in the land of those who are awake. Does anybody here remember Joan Campion? Raise your hand. Yeah, Joan Campion. She died just about 4 years ago. God bless her. She was one feisty and ever-vigilant guardian angel of South Bethlehem. Of this graveyard, she wrote, "Those that rest here found it no distant journey from their homes, their churches, and the melancholy mills that fed and killed them. By day, the wind sighs softly here, carrying echoes of old songs first heard a world away. By night come creatures of the night, their savage passing marked by fallen monuments and swaths of spray paint. The dead no longer care for song or savagery. For them, this is the land of sleep." All right. That's a little better. I'm feeling it. Yeah. Wandering through the darkened, musty stacks of Linderman Library, walnut chairs and tables holding our butts and our books as we pick and choose our way through the labyrinth of recorded human thought, trying to triangulate something or some knowledge of something or other, the unknown value of X. No place put me to sleep faster. My face lying on the hard pages of a calculus textbook. Academia, yeah, I just wasn't cut out for it. Or the business world either. Woo! This was my bank. When I was a student at Lehigh, I think it was called Union. Yeah, right? Union Bank. Not anymore, of course. 1973, I walked into that bank in order to take out a $500 loan to buy a Martin guitar and was turned down flat. So, I went to my 18th century literature professor, Ernie Dilworth, and asked him to co-sign my loan, which he, amazingly enough, did. And I was on my way. Thank you, Ernie! Thank you, capitalism. Yeah. That guitar marked the start of a whole new journey for me. But where I was going, I didn't have a clue. Like Bethlehem or even Lehigh at the age of 22, 23, I had no idea who I was. It was like you're living in a train station. Yeah. But all the trains have stopped running. Still, look, there are tracks, People going every which way. Woo! Check it out. As if they know what's what. Yeah. So you're trying to figure out which way you should go. Yeah, left, right, straight out of town. Or maybe back into the warmth of the terminal. Just wait there until things work themselves out. Hope the roof doesn't cave in on you in the meanwhile. And all along, the joke's on you. Did you forget? Trains don't stop here anymore. Even if they did, how would you know which one to take? Seeing as how you don't know who you are. Well, let's not be proud. Maybe we'll just have to follow our heart and start walking. Yeah. Pride. That's what Rick Cantelme says he feels whenever he looks on the Bethlehem Christmas star. It was first constructed in 1937 during the Depression. It was 1955 when Bethlehem officially became the Christmas city of the United States. In those days, they lit it up only twice a year, at Advent and Easter. At Easter, of course, it was a cross. It was in the 80s they made it a year-round thing. Now, still, that was 60 years ago, and we still call ourselves the Christmas city. I just wonder what that's supposed to actually mean. Back in the 80s, when my wife, Bridget, and I first founded Touchstone Theater down on 4th Street here in South Bethlehem, my family, Bridget, Sam, and Nisa, and I, we lived just off of Hayes on 9th Street. And one night, I got lost on the back roads pretty far north of Bethlehem. And I found my way by keeping that star in my sight and following it on home. And you know what? Seen from afar, it really does look like a great star. You know, suspended in the sky, watching over us. And maybe it's not too much to believe that in some way it's the same star that guided the wise men and the shepherds to that storied family so long ago. The Star of Bethlehem. And that's a beautiful thing. But in reality, when close up, it's just a bunch of light bulbs stuck to a cleverly arranged and rickety frame, jutting out from the bald spot on the top of a poor excuse for a mountain, if ever I saw one, conceived and erected as a marketing ploy by a city in need of more commerce. Yeah. When you look close up, it's not so transcendent. Then again, that's us, isn't it? That's Lehigh, that's Bethlehem, just a bunch of light bulbs wanting to be something special. Maybe even LEDs, who knows? Not all white though, nah, not anymore. Many colors, like a Christmas tree. Maybe even C9s, we the people. And I tell you, I guess it's pretty much up to us now which way we're going to go, which pictures we're going to make, which shapes we're going to choose, which track we'll take. And this is my want, my prayer, if you will, that we have faith to strive for something more than pots and pans and banks and bridges or steel mills, more than photography or even art itself. Something from the heart. That we will work together to build a home our youth might find it worth finding their way back to. A place where our individual characters might shine through and be nourished, and we, the people, flourish. This school, this city, this people that has such great power in its deep and beautiful soul.